And we're live on Facebook, kids.
Great. Let me hit refresh and we'll
Yeah. So
jump right in there.
setting up the webinar. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, Randy, I wanted to go live. We're live on Facebook now. I wanted to go live on Facebook and YouTube at the same time,
Yeah.
but it won't let me do it. So I'm going to have to use StreamYard or one of those other tools when we go to the next level. So,
Okay.
yep, we're live on Facebook. Look. Yep.
There we
So click to expand. There we go. It's all happening. Let me post my comment. Ask any question. We will share with. Let me see. Got tag Damian? Nope. There's a business page. Yeah, okay, yeah. Boom. All right. Damian, you may not know this, but Randy and I are highly sophisticated. We have a huge amount of stalkers that stalk us. Okay. And don't freak out about that. But sometimes we get thousands and thousands of people to show up to the show. And so we'll tell you, roughly how many thousands. We only talk about the thousands. We don't break it down. Divide by 1,000. Right now we have 3,000 people as we're going to go live. As I hit the broadcast button 1 minute before the show starts, Randy.
Here we are. Yeah.
I've got my act together today.
I'm glad one of us does. So that's a good thing, Teddy.
By the way, next week it's all on you, buddy, because I may not have my act together. So.
Uh-oh. Next week is we're gonna have a great show next week. We've got a special guest today, Damian Birkel, who I've known, for almost 20 years, I'd say.
Oh yeah.
We'll get started here in just a moment, but it's nice to see the sunshine yesterday too. But I'll tell you, we got a ton of rain, and I just wonder how some of the folks up in the Northeast are faring. I've seen some videos on Facebook with lots of downed trees and flooding and just a whole host of things. So that's got to be.
Before we get started, let's ask our 19,000 people who are on here. Anybody lose power the last couple of nights? Anybody have flooding? I hope not, but I'm sure there are people who have. So use the chat box. Feel free to engage with us there, and we want you to be a part of this. So we're at the hour, top of the hour. That means it's time to get busy. So,
it is.
Yeah. How do I do this?
You start, Teddy.
Do I start? Hey, everyone, I'm Teddy Burriss. This is my good friend, Mr. Randy Wooden. And another good friend, Mr. Damian Birkel, is our guest today. And you're on lunch with Randy Wooden and Teddy Burriss. And we're glad that you're here. And we're going to have a great conversation with Damian. For those who don't know me, I'm a LinkedIn strategist. I teach people to use LinkedIn as a business tool, but I spend a lot of time helping people in this space called job search, career transition, and get me out of the house. So anyway, meet my friend, Mr. Randy Wooden.
Yeah, and Teddy is operating from in his house. Talk about getting out of the house. But like everybody else these days, a lot of us are working from home. But then again, a lot of us are not working at all. And if that's you, then hopefully today we'll give you some tips and encouragement to help you through that process. But again, my name is Randy Wooden. I'm the director for Goodwill's Professional Center here in Winston-Salem, and started the program back in 2012. So it seems like a blink of an eye. It's been over 8 years now, and we're still doing what we do. Happy to try to help you. Everything's free. I got to tell you, this is the first time that the three of us, Teddy, Damian, and I, have all been, if you will, on one panel. And just to kind of, I guess, pound our chest a little bit, when it comes to helping professionals in a job search, particularly in Winston, I'll say the Triad, but particularly in the Winston area, I'm not sure that I think we'd be in the top 5 for sure. I mean, in terms of what we've done to try to help folks. And so I'm really thrilled to introduce Damian Birkel. He's the Executive Director and founder of Professionals in Transition. I know you've written books. You've been on national television. I believe you're also a licensed or a counselor. Help correct me on that. But You can do a whole lot better job of introducing yourself than I can, Damian. So why don't you take it away?
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Randy said, I am a nationally certified career counselor. I am an educator. I am an author, and I am the founder of Professionals in Transition, which is a nationally recognized nonprofit support group for the unemployed and the underemployed. And I started it in 1992. We are an all volunteer organization, and both Randy and Teddy have helped a lot over the years. We offer A to Z when it comes to helping with your job search. And what you don't know about me is that I have been out of work 5 times. And until you lose your job and have to claw your way back up and out of the hole that you're in, I don't think that that you really understand.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted to be here today.
Well, good. And I see behind you, I see the emotional wave of unemployment. Now, true story. I can't swim. So if we're going to be talking about water, I better duck out of this thing. But first, Teddy has something he wants to add.
I do. I need to do the housekeeping, buddy.
Please do.
Yeah, we've got to do the housekeeping. So, hey, we're absolutely thrilled that 35,000 of you decided to show up today. I think it's close to 3,000 on Facebook Live. If you have a question, a thought, an idea, something you want to share, please use the chat box and drop it in there. And then we'll bring it up with the right time. And if you have a question, we'll bring the question up. This is all about you, trying to help you. So we need your insights. The other housekeeping is if you're eating a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit right now, I don't like you because I didn't get mine for breakfast. Back to you, buddy.
Oh, well. So that's emotional wave of unemployment. What is that? How'd you get that term? Where did it come from? And what does it all mean?
When I have lost my jobs, especially the second time, well, let me start by saying that my father died very suddenly when I was 18. And the experience of grieving that I went through was very hard and very deep. And when I lost my job the second time, I was here in Winston-Salem. I had traveled 60% of the time. And when I was out, except for a few people at church, there was, I didn't know anybody. And I actually was able, after 4 months, to be able to go back to a different division of Sara Lee. That's how I got down here. I got recruited from the department store in Cleveland where the Toy Story was filmed. The little kid, you're gonna shoot your eye out. That was a real department store, and everything that you saw, no props, that was the real deal. But the bottom line is I came down and floated for 4 months. I sent out 500 letters. I got 50 responses, 5 interviews, no job. And I found myself flashing through the grieving process. I was very angry that this had happened to me because I was in their plan in terms of where I was supposed to go in the future. Mm-hmm. All of that was taken away from me. Well, the long and short of it is, I went to church and I said, if you will help me through this and I stay in Winston-Salem, I will never forget what it was like to be unemployed. And within 2 weeks, we didn't have to pull my little girl out of school and I had a job. Here's the amusing part. What I would tell people was that I went from pots and pans, because I was a cookware buyer, mm-hmm. to mops, brooms, and brushes, because I came down here to work for the Fuller Brush Division, Sara Lee, to what was my latest area of expertise, which was bras and panties.
Hey, if you
And
got to be involved with something, I guess there's worse things than that, right?
well, it was a
But he
hands-on
said
opportunity.
expertise. He said his area of expertise, Randy. You know,
Oh, okay. I digress. So you've been through the ringer, Damian. You've been through it, and you say you've been through it 5 times. So what is this emotional wave of unemployment? How do we define that?
Well, here's where I was going.
Yeah.
Once I ended up back at work, I kept thinking about everything that I had gone through and wrote a blind letter to Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who, when she was alive, was the world's expert on death and dying. And she invited me up to her home in Virginia, and we spent literally a day talking about it. And she, in fact, said, I can sum it up in a sentence. She said, Damian, she said, a loss is a loss is a loss. Doesn't make any difference whether it's loss of a loved one or loss of a job. The process is the same. And the emotional wave comes from the fact that I kept feeling bowled over. You know how you stand sometimes if you're at the beach and get hit by a wave and you get knocked down and you get back up, you get knocked down.
Yeah.
And so it is a variation of her grieving model. And that's how the emotional wave came to be.
Interesting. Teddy, I know there's some chat things going on. I don't know if there's any questions yet. I haven't.
nope. So again, everybody feel free to ask any questions or bring up your insights and we'll share those.
Are there stages, I guess, Damian, are there stages of this emotional wave as you go through that job hunt process?
Yes. The first thing is, over time, I've learned that the emotional wave is very elastic. And not everybody goes through every single stage, but most people will identify with this. When I was called into the office and told that my position was being eliminated, the minute I heard eliminated, all I heard after that was wah, 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 because of the fact that I went into shock.
Yeah.
And didn't really know what to do. Basically sat out in my car for an hour or two before I went home. Couldn't bring myself to say anything to my wife until around midnight. I went into work the next day, and do you know those giant gray bins that you see cleaning people push to empty the trash in?
Sure.
I went into my cube and it was sitting there, and I said, well, what is it doing there? And one of the other managers said, throw everything away. I said, everything? They said, they don't want a thing. And so I had the pleasure of taking all of my hard work that I had done and literally emptied my office and threw it all away. And all that institutional knowledge went with it. But even then, I thought, because I was in denial, that surely they had made a mistake and they would realize the fact that they needed me and they would call me back. And nope, that didn't happen. Also, around the same time, you get this tremendous feeling of fear and panic because your entire life has completely changed right before your eyes. And probably the most difficult thing is the fact that your rice bowl has been emptied without your permission. And whether you have severance or not, that's for a very limited amount of time. And I was extremely disillusioned when I found out just how little unemployment benefits are. And so between the fear and the panic and the shock and denial, I got very angry. And I like to call it righteous anger. And the first time I lost my job, now bear in mind I had gotten 7 promotions in 7 years, and I went from a rating of outstanding to unsatisfactory, and all that changed was my boss. The month that I was told I was unsatisfactory, I got buyer of the month, which means that my sales had the greatest increase across the division. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, Damian. So what steps looking back did you take, and do you encourage your folks in professionals in transition to take to kind of work themselves through that wave of getting knocked down to move forward? How do we move forward from here after the poops hit the fan and you've had to throw your life's work away in the dumpster? Where do you go? How did you get back on your feet again?
Well, the first thing that you need is time. And the last thing you want to do is send out an old resume. And you need recovery time. It can be 2 weeks. It can be 4 weeks, but you need to give yourself a chance to settle down and work through the majority of your anger. You're still going to have a little bit of it, and maybe a lot as you go through the process. But then you have to kind of pick up the pieces and begin again. And the first thing is to develop a regular work schedule. What I kept telling myself is that my full-time job is finding a full-time job. And that's how you begin the process.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just going to say, so recognizing it's okay to grieve, but at some point you say, okay, let's compartmentalize that a bit here and let's move on and focus our attention on the positive of getting to where we need to go, instead of, I hate to use the word wallowing because that implies that we're weak or we have some fault. But instead of dwelling, let's put it that way, maybe dwelling on the past, let's focus on the future. So let's walk through that process now. What are some of those steps that you would take? You mentioned make it like a job to start with.
Mm-hmm.
So were you able to structure your day in a certain way, or what advice would you give to somebody who's kind of going through that right now?
The first thing that I did was a thing I like to call chunking. And what that was breaking my day up into the smallest measurable amount of time. And the first time it was before the internet. And so before I would have coffee, I would go through and find at least 5 positions that I qualified for. Before lunch, I responded to all 5 of those positions. And then in the afternoon is when I started to make follow-up calls or calls of inquiry. And the other thing I did is I set up a tracking system. Now it's much easier because you can do it online.
Sure.
But what gets measured is what gets done. Another thing is you have to cut yourself a lot of slack because some days really are better than others. Once I got to that point, and I probably should back up a little bit, you have to redo your resume. But before you can redo your resume, you have to, and personality tests are very helpful, but you have to figure out what you want to do going forward. And what I found is that folks that are our age, going forward, 9 times out of 10, they tell me that the mission is more important than the money. Now, money's important, but this time they want to get it right. And they want to, go ahead.
Teddy, you had.
And Damian, you know, you and I have talked about this before, and I've, as a volunteer at Professionals in Transition, which by the way meets on Thursdays virtually right now, and I'll share the link to how to get to that meeting. But one of the things that I learned when you were first telling me about the emotional wave of unemployment is that you have to acknowledge these different phases, these different stages are real. You've got to acknowledge that you're gonna have that shock and denial, and you got to figure out how do you address it. You're gonna have that fear and uncertainty. You're gonna get angry to whatever level is relevant to you and in that position. And then you're going to think through, you call it the bargaining. How do I get there? And then, the depression part, again, all of these, what I got from our conversation are all of these, and, all the way through the acceptance of this to happen, they're going to impact all of us at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us be able to handle it easier than others, but being aware of these different stages is probably the one most important thing I got out of it when we first started talking about this.
Oh, good. Thank you. And you're absolutely right. One thing I always like to caution people is depression is anger turned inwards. Mm-hmm. And if you find yourself unable to move, not wanting to get up, and various other things, little energy, there is nothing wrong with seeking outside help. Talk to one of us. Don't be afraid to go and talk to someone at family services or other agencies. It's sliding scale. So guess what? When you are making zero, you pay zero, because it's very important for you and for your family to work your way through this. Now, one thing that I've learned is that when you have to play, which bill do I pay this month? Mm-hmm. It can act as a trigger, and you can find yourself going around and around. But like Teddy said, it's understanding that these are real emotions, and it is perfectly okay and appropriate to feel them, as opposed to trying to stuff it all the way down. Because if you're still angry when you're interviewing, it is going to show in your body language, it's going to show in the way that you speak, and it's also going to show in the tone. And so a human resource manager may not understand why you're angry, but they're going to pick up on it because they're very sensitive to things like that, to your cues. And especially if you're doing an interview over Zoom, depending on what program they have, they can run, I guess you call it psychometrics, where they can actually measure your nonverbals and various other things. So it's important to work this thing through and understanding that you're not going crazy, because what I found is that the highs were much higher and the lows were much lower.
Something you mentioned earlier, and I kind of, you alluded to it, maybe didn't mention it directly, and what I picked up on, because I think we've all been through, let's just say, the valleys as well as peaks. You've talked about some of the valleys you've experienced. I think one thing that is kind of reassuring, and I try to share this with clients, is that, hey, look, you know what? You're not alone. Others have experienced similar things, and so it's not your fault necessarily that you are in the situation you're in. And I think that self-blame and that self-talk that people can go through, and that self-doubt, and says, well, what's wrong with me? And I think that can eat at you. But something you mentioned earlier, you mentioned mission versus money. And mm-hmm. I hear that too from time to time. As people age, they've made their money, but it comes with a cost or price. And that's a lack of the family life, the lack of the work-life balance. And as some get older, they see the mission. And I want you to talk more about, in your view, what is the mission? Is it the company mission? Is it the job content that you're doing? When you talk about mission, what do you mean by that?
Mission is internal, not external. Mission is what you do that allows you to maximize your transferable skill set. Many times you fall into your career and can do very well at it. But I have seen company presidents weep because here they are towards the very end of their career, and they realize that they have climbed the wrong ladder to success and have to start basically all over again. On the other hand, I've seen many people go through the process, find their transferable skills, almost curate the job that they are looking for, and are making the same amount of money, if not more, and are thriving in their business because they are doing what they really want to do and are using their core skill set in a way that has never been used in their life in their prior positions.
Interesting. So it's a little bit of everything. It sounds like. Now, Teddy, you had your hand raised, so the teacher in me wants to acknowledge you. So,
Well,
Mr.
thank you,
Burriss,
Teach.
I
really
would you
appreciate
like
it.
to
By
add
the way,
something to the discussion?
Yeah, I have a question that came from John. And by the way, I want to
Yeah.
kudos to you for the lighting adjustment you're working on. Your stage hands are really doing a great job, buddy. So keep pushing them to do that. So John throws out this question that's important. He said that his journey is different than many's, including the one that Damian's speaking about. And as a computer programmer, he found that his biggest problem was his skills had become obsolete. And then he was trying, and I picked up on that word, John. He said trying to retrain himself was not doing any helping him because employers wanted people with work experience. So, can you speak to that, Damian? I got this skill here. I'm an absolute fiend at doing Fortran software development, but nobody wants that. So I go learn how to do C#, but I have no experience. And now nobody wants me, even though I have new skills. Thoughts, ideas?
Sure. The first thing is, and I am not an information technology person by any means, but my understanding is that there are many companies that continue to use old systems that now cannot find the people that they need because they have all retired. And what I am wondering is, has John had the chance to interface with people in banking, perhaps hospitals, and ask the question, what languages are you using? Because in fact, he might be in demand and just not have the opportunity to connect with the right people. Retraining is a great option, and I certainly understand the challenges of having training without experience. But if you have a core set of skills that most people are thinking are outmoded, there are others that desperately need Fortran and C++ and what have you.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. Randy, you got a thought on that as well?
Well, again, I was an old headhunter, and when I say old, I mean old. But no, a recruiter back before the internet, to your point earlier, Damian, and a lot of it is personal referrals. And on paper, somebody may not always necessarily stack up, but if you've got an advocate, somebody that can speak on your behalf, and that helps eliminate the, gee, do I kind of think I could trust this person? In other words, the character issue is somewhat mitigated because somebody they know has recommended you. By the way, we're about halfway through today's program. It is coming up near the bottom of the hour. If you have questions, please chat them in the chat box. Our guest today is Damian Birkel. He's the executive director and founder of Professionals in Transition, and probably I'm going to call you the pioneer of job coaching and consulting in Winston-Salem. I don't know of anybody who started before you. Certainly nobody who's done that is still doing what they do. You've been doing this for a long time. Tell me, you mentioned earlier that you have written a book. What you've got a book or two, right? If you would mention that. Yeah. And Teddy, maybe we can put that in the notes as well.
I got it, boss.
Thank you. I am a HarperCollins leadership author. I have written 3 books. The first one is Career Bounce Back, and that's a book that talks mainly about the emotional wave, how to recover and the things that you need to do to get there. There is an accompanying workbook. And then the most recent book is the Job Search Checklist. And this is much more how-to driven and reflects the tremendous amount of growth that I've experienced having the privilege to run professionals in transition since 1992.
And you've had, I don't know how many thousands of people that have come through your doors you've interacted with or you've spoken with over the years. I know we have, what do we have today? We had about 45,000 people on our show earlier. I think we're down a couple thousand now.
Yeah, but it ebbs and flows like that,
flows.
Randy, because of the internet, and some countries don't necessarily subscribe to the Randy Wood and Teddy Burriss philosophies.
Yeah, well, there's time for that, for them to come around. So our topic today is the emotional wave of unemployment. Again, Damian Birkel has joined us. And Damian, this job loss impacts not just you, but those around you, your family and so forth. And sometimes they don't always understand. So let's talk about that now. If they don't understand, how can we convey our feelings to our family, and how do we all kind of get along together going through this process?
I think the first thing is there is a matching wave called the family wave. Same emotions, but what's different is in many cases, your family will go through them at a different time. And the most important thing is information, update, and reassurance. Because all your family can do is stand by and watch you go through the process. There isn't anything they can do. But as the months go on, and sometimes they do, life gets tighter and sacrifices have to be made, and that can be a source of tension. Another thing is everybody's used to, well, not during COVID, but we're used to you up early, out of the house, gone all day, home at night. The rhythm of the family has changed. The routine of the family has changed. And the other thing that I found, both for me and for my family, is that when I was out of work, every unresolved skeleton in my closet came rumbling up.
Ooh, wow.
And sad to say that there have been a number of divorces that I have seen as a result of unemployment, prolonged unemployment. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the way that things were working is there was not a lot of time together. But to your question, here's some of the things that you can do. First thing is I would update my wife once a week, no more. And that eliminated the hovering issue where questions like how many resumes did you send out today, how many jobs did you apply for, et cetera, was eliminated because frankly, you want to keep your family life separate. Another thing is I stopped being a 24/7 job searcher, and that routine that I mentioned, I stuck to. And at 5 o'clock, I left everything. At this point, I still had an office that they were letting me use. I left everything there. I came home and I resumed my other roles, which was spouse, husband, and father, and also maintained other roles like Cub Scouting and what have you. Go ahead, Randy.
I'm going to ask you about the kids because your wife can understand the ground rules, but the kids are kind of curious, like, "Hey, Dad's home," or "What's going on here?" So depending, I guess, on their age, there's certain things you tell them, and maybe certain things they don't need to know. Or how do you handle that with kids?
I think you have to be, like you said, sensitive to their age, and also you can assign age appropriate things for them to do to help the family while you're going through transition. At one point, my 3-year-old, the one thing he could do is make sure that all the lights were out in a room when no one was in it. That's the good news. The bad news is sometimes I was left completely in the dark. But again, he was a 3-year-old, and that was something that was tangible, measurable, and something that he could latch onto to help. And then I came up with a few other things for my daughter.
Damian,
Teddy?
James shared a question about, he used the phrase mediocre letter of recommendation. And in the letter of recommendation, it says the author, who I'm assuming is probably a manager or a previous manager of his, in the message, it's in the recommendations, it says, let me repeat, in the mediocre recommendations, it says, for more information about Jimmy, give me a call. James wants to know if he should pass that on to anyone.
No, that's like danger, 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 Will Robinson.
Yeah.
You, the job searcher, needs to be in control of the flow of information with those who are going to give references to you at all times.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is to give somebody permission to poke around your past.
Interesting. Hey, by the way, if you are watching today and you'd like to chat in some questions about the emotional curve, the emotional wave, please do. But a totally ad-lib section comes up later today, and it's going to be the rapid fire round. We're going to fire at Damian some kind of quick yes, no sort of answers about resumes, interviewing, that sort of thing. So if you've got those.
You didn't warn him about that, did you?
Well, I did. I sort of. Damian, get ready. You're going to hear it from me, but anyway. So we're going to have a little fun.
Load the gun.
Yeah, we're going to have fun with that here in a little while. So plenty of things that we've talked about today. I guess if you had to begin to sort of wrap up this whole topic of the emotional wave, are there a handful of points that you want people to really remember about this? What are some takeaways that you'd like people to go home with and try to implement?
The first thing I said earlier, which is some days are better than others. The second is that the emotional wave is elastic. Some people go through it and are just fine. Others really struggle with it, like I did. The other thing is, please do yourself a favor and don't be a 24/7 job searcher, because your effectiveness will drop and continue to drop for as long as you do, because you become exhausted. I think it is important to include your family in your job search, but with rules. I think it is also important to not allow others in your family, as in mother-in-law, whatever, when you're at family gatherings, to poke at you and want to know what really happened. And you get around that by having a strong bridge statement, and that is a non-emotional statement of what happened in a way that puts you in the best light. You're not lying. You just want to be able to provide your bridge statement to whoever, including employers, and have them go, okay.
Any examples that off the cuff? I'm not trying to pin you down to exact verbiage here, but is there anything you can give people right now that says, okay, I can work with that and meld my message into that structure?
Sure. Let me share a couple of mine. The last time that I lost my job, there had been a restructuring and an entire department had gotten wiped out. So it really wasn't anything personal. And basically what I said was that there was a reorganization, that there were a number of people that were impacted, and I was one of them. Again, the truth. There might have been a little tension there between my new boss and myself, but no company wants to hire another former company's problem. And so by having a strong bridge statement to start out, then they will not pick up on the fact that you have sour grapes. And if this is the way you talk about your old company, imagine the way you're going to talk about your new company.
Oh,
So
man.
you're saying that I shouldn't say that company sucked and I'm glad I'm out of there?
Probably not.
Teddy. Hey, Damian, listen, a lot has changed over the years, and we'll talk about that. Just again, not in this, I guess I'll call it a lightning round, but I'm going to ask you, so get ready. Some things that have changed over the years that you've seen on your side of the desk as not only a job hunter, but also from an employer standpoint. So maybe think about that a little bit. But one thing that has changed it goes back to your time in the early 90s when you started Pitt, Professionals in Transition. Back then, a lot of people didn't really lose their job as often. And I think about my dad. He's 45, 50 years or whatever at the same company. When times were tough, they stuck with their employees. They kept them. They may have cut back on their hours, but there was loyalty there, and there was loyalty on the part of the employee. And you tended to see that more often. And so nowadays, that's largely out the window for the most part. And so I'll use the word sin, but not necessarily the biblical sin, but it's not a sin necessarily today to find yourself out of a job, because companies right size, whatever the term they want to use, but the days of sticking there the entire career are largely gone. And so, whereas in the early 90s, what the heck happened to you when you lost your job? Because people didn't lose their job like they do today. There must have been something wrong with you back then to lose your job. There was more of a stigma attached to it. And today I don't see that stigma attached as certainly as much, particularly among younger folks, because they know, I mean, this thing's a roller coaster, and they're going to be on a ton of different jobs over their lives. So that's one thing that's changed. And again, to your point, you're not alone. And the fact that you were part of a division or a department that had multiple layoffs, then that helps take it off of, oh, there's something wrong with you, Damian. You were part of the wave. You got caught up in that downsize. And we see that a lot with particularly larger companies. And they'll go, man, I survived the first two layoffs, but I got caught up in this one. It's nothing personal, man. It's business. And, you take your ball and you go somewhere else. So, Damian, what have you seen? What are some changes you have seen over the years? Processes that job hunters use. Certainly technology's changed a lot in how we look for jobs. What are some things you've observed over your time?
Well, first, one thing that hasn't changed, and that's the need for support. Letting people know that you're going to be okay, and finding people that will help you through the process and open doors for you to make connections. Now, some of the things that have changed, you said technology, you either have it or you need to get it quickly, because it is just an assumption that Microsoft, all the different programs, and various others. Another thing that has changed is LinkedIn. And I'm the LinkedIn masters to my left, at least on my screen, but you have to have a strong LinkedIn profile, period. And in many ways, it needs to match your resume, because if they don't line up, then you'll get dropped like a hot potato. I think another thing that has changed, especially with COVID-19, is Zoom. And you can have a lot of very good meetings on Zoom that pre-COVID you would think could only be done in person. I think that the length of time that people are out of work in many cases can be longer. But again, that depends. It depends on the person's skill set. It depends on the person's age. It depends on the way that they position themselves going forward. I think also more now than ever, it is important to position yourself as the answer to the employer's needs. Another trend that is even more important is the use of keywords, because now 99% of what you send in online is going through an applicant tracking system. And an applicant tracking system evaluates your resume based on at least as a primary, the keywords that you have in your resume, your cover letter, etc. And you can be the most qualified person in the world, but if you don't have the right keywords, you're not going to get scored. And if you're not going to get scored high, you're never going to take it to the next level, which is to a human being.
What's your take on this? And this is for both of you guys. And I could give you my take, but then again, who cares, right?
We care.
Here's the deal. You know, we all hear, you got to network, you got to network, you got to network, you got to network. And so many people don't do a good job of that, and they get frustrated, burned out, whatever. And we can talk about that. Maybe that may be a topic for another time, all about networking and how that may have changed. But let me ask you, do you feel as though networking is more or perhaps less important today than perhaps it was back in the early 90s when you started the PIT organization?
I think it is more important today.
Okay.
And
why is that?
Well, because of the fact that, especially now with COVID, people hire people.
Yeah.
Not a resume, not a LinkedIn profile. And if a person believes in you and will lobby for you within an organization or with people that they know, it really is the most effective way, because you have someone standing up for you and for your reputation. If they say, Teddy is a great guy and you need to speak to him, then it is much different than if you are on LinkedIn and you just hit connect, as opposed to taking the time to send them a personal note. Networking is the way that you build relationships. You can build lifelong relationships. As a matter of fact, I have several that go back to the 70s that helped me when I originally lost my job. And now that Zoom has become the way to meet, meeting people, networking with people online through Zoom or the other various ways you can do it electronically is perfectly acceptable. And to me, the more you network, the better you become. And not just when you're unemployed. Once you teach yourself how to network, it is the gift that keeps on giving through the rest of your life. And when you land, you, at wherever you end up going, you will have become a natural networker, and that will give you a leg up on most of the people that you worked with. When I was at Sara Lee, I could get things done that would make people, my boss would shake his head and said, how would you get that done? And that was just through natural networking, helping people get what they need. And they, in turn, because it was a reciprocal relationship that was business oriented and related, that magic happened, at least in the eyes of my boss. But what it really was a series of strong interrelated relationships that made the wheel go round.
Yeah, Teddy, how about you? Networking more important today or less?
Critical. It's critical. You both have heard me use this phrase: stop looking for a job, stop asking for jobs, stop applying for jobs. Get into conversations with the right people about new ideas.
I'm with you on both of them.
Get into conversations with people about ideas. I'm 62 years old. I've never gotten a job through an interview, and I've had 7 major career shifts. Mm-hmm. Every job I've gotten has been through a conversation with a business owner or a department head, whatever the conversation is. So, Damian, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you joining us. I shared with the group how they can find Professionals in Transition meeting, as well as some of the other virtual meetings. So, hopefully you can get some more people can participate in PIT and hear some of the more ideas that you and your volunteers share. Brandy, it's time for you and I, and Damian, you can hang out if you want to listen to these two old guys talking. It's time for you and I to share.
Man, not yet. No, I'm going to do the lightning round.
Do the rapid fire.
Do the rapid fire. I normally write this stuff down. This is the stuff that we want to talk about, some of the talking points, but this is an off the cuff. I host a panel discussion from time to time with our Goodwill Professional Center, and both of you guys have been part of the panel. And I know, Damian, you have always been on our panel that we do in August. We have our large annual event. Of course, that's not going to happen due to COVID. So here's your chance that you would have to say all the things that you would have said in the panel discussion. So anyway, just rapid fire, no particular order. Teddy, jump in. So do we have a bell? I don't think we have a bell.
I can make one happen, Randy.
Ding. Okay.
There we go.
Teddy's on it. He's our crack production staff over there at Command Central. All right. So here's some questions about resumes. 1 page or 2, or does it matter? Thoughts?
2 pages. 2 pages because an applicant tracking system doesn't care.
Doesn't care. How important are cover letters? Do you still do them? And if so, do you attach them to the resume, or do you blow them off, not do them?
Do one every time. Do a T-square cover letter that talks about how your abilities match their qualifications. You do that because you are using their keywords twice. And usually what I do is, when you can only have one document, page 1 is the T-square letter, and then the next 2 pages are your resume.
Good deal. And again, Teddy, if you've got a couple of these,
here's one.
Anybody's typing them in? Yeah.
Here's one. Steve asked this question: with the growth of LinkedIn, do you see the traditional resume going bye-bye in place of LinkedIn anytime soon?
No.
I agree.
They complement each other.
They do. And at least with a resume, you can custom fit that based on the job you're applying for, whereas LinkedIn is a one-size-fits-all document that you can't control what that particular audience person is seeing. So that's why I think a resume still has value. How important are thank you notes?
Vitally important. Okay. There is someone that we all know who works at a major hospital, who has been a recruiter for over 30 years. She holds on to every thank you note. This is a person that has employed thousands over her career. Total number of thank you notes she has over 30 years, 27. My point being, your opportunity to say thank you is very important. And the way that I recommend is, sure, you want to shoot them a short email, but you want to attach to it a Word document, and then wait 3 days, print the document out, sign it, and mail it. And the reason why is twofold. Anything coming through the mail these days that isn't junk is an event. And number 2, by the time that they get your resume, which will be 5 days, right? Because you wait 3, you mail it, takes another 2. By the time they get it, they will most probably have already deleted your thank you note. And it's something that they will 9 times out of 10 hang onto.
Yep. Steve chimed in with a question about what's a T-squared letter, and I think Teddy just provided a link to it. And Steve, that's something that I also get involved with as well. So we'll talk that. In fact, you've got one sitting in your inbox already. So there's that. So resumes are going to be around for a while, it looks like. And you say keywords are important. So when you say keywords, help me understand, are these what I would call soft skills, like dependable, hardworking, or are they hard skills, purchasing, procurement, human resources?
They're hard skills, and there's an exercise that I've developed that folks can do, which is whatever the title of their next position is, and there could be variations. You can print 10 out, get a highlighter out, and highlight the common words as you go through it. You can also use Wordle too, for that matter.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, by the time you're done, and oh, by the way, those positions are from anywhere in the country, not just Winston-Salem. By the time you're done highlighting all of those keywords, you will have a list of maybe 10, maybe 15. And what you have done is in one fell swoop decoded the keywords for the position that multiple organizations are looking for to try to find you. Now, between those keywords, the national keywords, plus the keywords that you use in your cover letter, you are going to score very high because, again, you're loading it up with keywords that you can do. And that, by far, is the most important part of your resume.
Well, good.
Along with problem, action, result statements, which I can talk about if you would like.
Well, we're going to wrap things up here. You passed, by the way, Damian. You just like John Lennon. Thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves. I hope we passed the audition. You've passed the audition, so you're hired over there.
That's good.
So Damian Birkel, Executive Director, Founder of Professionals in Transition. Now, to reach Damian, Teddy, you'll post contact info.
It's jobsearching.org, right, Damian?
Correct.
Yep.
Jobsearching.org. You guys meet Thursday evenings, virtually but Thursday evenings.
That's right.
What time?
At 7 o'clock. And the link is right on our homepage.
And it's free. So again, that's the beauty of this thing. When you need help, sometimes the last thing you want to do is have to dip into your pocket and pay somebody for that. And the value that somebody like Damian and Teddy and I can bring is that we've been a job hunter, but we've also been a hiring official, and we've coached probably thousands of people over our lifetime. So lots to
between the three of us, we're probably hitting in the 20,000 range.
Oh, at least, if not more.
Yeah.
Well,
So
there's tons. I know we're going to run out of time here. So Damian, again, thank you so much for joining us. Stick around for just a moment or two. And I know, Teddy, you had some things you'd like to share, and I'll make up a story or two real quick, and then we'll.
I'll let you think for a little bit, Randy. What you think? Okay. Hey, look, here's my my closing remarks. A couple things that I wrote down as I listened to Damian. First of all, you got to realize you have no control over what a company or a boss is going to do. You have no control over it. So you have to be able to control what you have the ability to control, and that's yourself and your actions and your thoughts. The other thing is be prepared. I tell people this on a regular basis. You may get the greatest job ever next month, and you're going to lose it within a year. You may lose it within a year. So you have to be prepared. And being prepared means knowing what you're going to do if that happens, knowing the steps, the actions, the tactics, and the conversations you're going to need to get into if and when that happens again. Here's the other thing. If you struggle doing stuff for job search, as you may struggle for doing stuff in life, practice it. Try it more. If you're not good at networking, you know what Teddy's going to tell you to do? Go out and network more. Get into more conversations. Practice what you struggle doing, and it will no longer be a struggle. And then the last thing is, Randy, I'm going to introduce our guest for next week. And by the way, I dropped in the chat the list of the Lunch with Randy Wooden and Teddy Burriss speakers coming up. And next week we have Ms. Sarah Elkins. And Sarah is going to bring a conversation around her book, and it's titled, Your Stories Do Not Define You. How You Tell Them Does. Randy?
Well, what Teddy said. Let me add this. We talk about job security. I mentioned it earlier, and how you tend to stay with a company. Years ago, you'd stay there your entire career, and they would stay with you. And so what today constitutes job security? And, on the surface, you think, well, there is none. So you're out of luck. But I think it's your ability to reinvent yourself. and to be a lifelong learner, to continue to remain competitive. You guys mentioned earlier, it's a standard. If you don't know Microsoft Office, as an example, you're a dinosaur. There's some things that there's some holes in my game that if I were to lose my job with Goodwill, I'd need to brush up on. I won't divulge what they are. It'll be our secret. But nobody's perfect. And so part of that challenge is self-awareness and recognizing where you need to devote time. And to Teddy's point, if that means improving your networking, or if that means improving your technical skills, or maybe taking some courses that deal with other topics, leadership, time management, all kinds of areas that you can improve professionally and personally to help make yourself a little more relevant and competitive as we go through the process, because the jobs we hold today may not even be around 10 years from now. And there may be new jobs that come to light based on technology and how things have changed. So our job security is our ability to remain relevant, to upskill and continue to train, and with looking forward, not looking back saying, man, I wish those 8 tracks would come back in, or, I love those typewriters that we used to use in the typing pool. Those days are gone. And for us to move past that, whether it's the technology or even the job loss, all right, let's move on. Let's focus on the future and not look to live and dwell in the past.
Hey, Randy, I know a job that no longer exists. It's the coveted
A
role.
barber?
No. You still got to manage these dudes, so don't pretend. Here's the coveted role of a European upper knocker.
The upper knocker, huh?
You're going to need to Google that. I'm not telling anybody what it is. It is a legitimate role that is no longer required.
Okay. Well,
legitimate, buddy.
It's all about being legitimate here. Hey, Teddy, we're about out of time. Damian Birkel, thank you once again.
Thank you, Damian.
Professionals in transition, reach out to Damian, reach out to Teddy Burriss, reach out to me. All 3 of us, we're in the same sandbox here, in that we're out here trying to help folks who are going through a tough time. And if you live long enough, you're going to go through it once, if not more. So just know we're out here. Reach out for the help. You're not alone. We're happy to help. And find us on LinkedIn, by the way. Look us up. We're all here.
All right, folks. It's the hour, top of the hour. Damian, again, thank you. Randy, good seeing you, buddy. And we'll see everybody next week.
All right. Have a good day. See you guys.
Thank you.